The purpose of this space is to create a very safe environment for people to share a moment of their lives.
Located one block north of St. Paul's Hospital, Downtown Denture Center features complete and partial teeth restoration options. With 35 years experience, Anthony Chung offers mobile services and emergency repair consultation 24 hours a day. Downtown Denture Center, just off Nelson at 970 Burrard in the lobby of the Electra Building.
My name is Fender Benavides from Drive Promoters in Quillam, serving the Filipino community for the past 4 years. Whether you're looking for a minivan, car, truck, SUV, or a crossover, guaranteed financing available. I am here to help. Salamat po.
Cowley & Company, car accident lawyers representing personal injury and disability victims in the Lower Mainland. A former chiropractor, Lee Cowley has more than 20 years' experience as an attorney in BC. Locations include Abbotsford and Burnaby, with a head office in Surrey, on 104 Avenue at 138th Street. Foodie World presents Philippine Street, featuring a large selection of Filipino foods, from imported non-perishable products to both packaged seafood and locally caught and very much alive. Foodie World is 75,000 square feet of worldly groceries situated in North Richmond.
All the stories that you're going to hear tonight are personal in nature, some of which can encroach on dark topics as addiction, abuse, self-harm, and you may get triggered by them. And if you do, there's a beautiful lounge to the back of XY that you can go down, chill out, get your composure. When you're ready, you can come and join us. Welcome, everyone. My name is Winston Young. I am your host tonight for another episode of Voice Story Live. Okay, so I'm going to put this hat on. So give me a second to put this hat on, and we'll get the show started. Okay. Yay, now we can get going. My next speaker went through a similar process, and I very much relate to what she has to say, so I invite her up to share. Sasha Herman.
Okay, hi everybody. You know, when it comes to romantic relationships, and you'll see a theme that's where I spend a lot of my thinking time. But with men, I kind of got stuck as in being a teenager when it comes to dating and relating to men. And I not that long ago, which was shocking, I had this person that I was dating, and he said to me, and I really liked him. And he said to me, "Can I let you know Sunday if we can see each other Sunday?" And I heard myself say yes, and I was like. No, that I'm actually not okay with that. But I found myself saying yes and holding silent what was actually important to me, what I actually thought what was okay and not okay by me. And these little things just made me realize that I have this story. So I have this story that formulated probably in my teenage years, because that seems to be the character that keeps showing up, that I'm too much, that I take up too much space. I have a loud voice. You can hear me before you see me often. That I don't give enough space for other people, that I'm just too much. And so I have been putting myself in this box because I've made this mistake that, and I only just realized this recently, that I have equated my personality for self-expression. So I have a big personality, but when I'm interacting with others, it's often in encouragement or positivity or going along with. I want people to like me. And so I don't actually say what's on my mind. And the scary part is half the time I don't really know what I want. So I can't often say it if I don't know it. And I didn't really even have a great depth or sense of this depth, that this was going on for me, that I was a people pleaser and just going along with it and didn't really have or own my voice until about 2 years ago. I was in coach training. I think there's a few coaches in the room here with me today as well. And it was at the end of our training, and we were doing this thing where everybody in the room was taking turns talking to one another and having a desire, a wish for them, for their future, a want for them. And this 18-year-old boy came up to me and said, "Sasha, what I want for you more than anything is for you to speak your mind and to say what's on your mind." And I actually hated hearing that. I really didn't like it. It did not land for me. I was like, what are you talking about? I talk all the time. I take up a lot of space. And I think I didn't like hearing that because I think I knew it was truth. It was a blind spot. I felt like criticism. I felt a bit hurt. But I think I also knew it was truth. And I had packed the true me, the essence of me, away because I wanted to fit in, and we've talked about that. There's this box, and I wanted to fit into it. I wanted to be good at it. I wanted to be liked for it. So when he said that to me, it got me thinking, and it certainly planted a seed. I didn't do much with that seed. I mean, I think I ruminated over this for quite a while. Like, what does it mean to speak your mind? Because every time I'd think about it, I'd feel really uncomfortable. It takes courage to speak one's mind, and I guess I just didn't have it in me at that point. And then interestingly, about 6 months later, I met a man. And again, I relate most of my life to my dating experience, so the men keep showing up as like the teachers along the way. And I fell in love with this man. I don't think, and really, it wasn't him that I fell in love with. I fell in love with the idea of falling in love. But what happened in that time was I fell in love with myself. And I hadn't experienced that depth of openness in probably about 15 years, since the first experience of what love could be. And I found this poetic part in me. I mean, I was writing him poetry. I was like this feminine creature. I was at the beach, like splayed out in the sand, like heart open to the sky, super connected. And it was all light, and it was all love, and it was all beauty. And in that time, I remember talking to everybody and loving on everybody. And the more I loved myself, the more I could love them. And I was magnetic, and people were, drawn to me. And it was truly love breeding love. And that was a heart-opening, cracked wide open moment for me, which was amazing. And then not long after that, it started to fall apart. And what was so interesting about that was that in rolled the darkness. And in that darkness was this need for validation with men, this need, and the shame. That's where my shame primarily lives. And I didn't really know it until that point, that I have desires and wants and needs, that I've struggled with my weight my whole life, and that's my sense of worthiness, that being validated and liked by men is my sense of worthiness. All of this stuff came raging in at the same time. And I think it was that contrast that was so powerful, because I was still cracked open. I wanted so much to love. I have such a yearning to love, but this darkness just swept in over me. And I was in a float tank. I don't know if anybody's been to those, but it's sensory deprivation. There's no sound, no sight. And most often when I go into these tanks, I disappear into quietness and peace and serenity, and it's wonderful. But not that day. That day, I guess having been cracked this wide open, in that tank, I heard the most terrible voices. Voices that are ugly, and voices of self-loathing, like a river of self-loathing I did not know existed within me. And it literally broke my heart. Like the meanness with which one can talk to oneself is shocking. And I think those voices had been so loud for so long that I didn't even hear them. And it took that moment in a float tank, hearing those voices, for me to start screaming at them. And for the first time ever, I found my voice. I literally was screaming in that float tank, "No, I am not fat. No, I am not ugly. No, I am not unworthy." And that was such a crazy, mind-blowing, I want to swear up here, experience, because it came from this other place. It didn't come from my head. It came from this desire to stop fighting with myself and to start fighting for myself. And that was a big shift. Truthfully, I left there shaken. I didn't know what to do with it. I think I may have set an intention around this idea of like fighting for myself instead of with myself. So I can't say that there was a formula that I followed for the next 9 months. I know that I did a lot. That Hero's Journey is one that I relate to, and I did a lot of work, a lot of workshops as a coach, just coaching others and what they teach you. But I also set a practice of kindness. And I remember last year, New Year's Day, I said to myself, no more dieting, none of this up and down thing, can't do it anymore. That's how I evaluated my success in life, as if I had eaten well the day before. You know, you're 38 years old, enough of this. Instead, what you're gonna do is you're gonna be kind to your body. So ask yourself, what is kindness? And start loving yourself and cultivating that practice of kindness and love. And it sounds cliche and it's, you know, all over the place, but I hadn't ever thought about approaching myself from that place of kindness, from that place of, you know, if I were talking to somebody, a child that was suffering, you know, how would I treat them, and why can't I treat myself that way? So that was, you know, kind of the journey for the next 9 months. And then again, you know, a man shows up. So what have I learned? Have I really learned anything? And what happened was I woke up one day in February of last year, and I had this vivid dream about the last really substantial relationship I had had. And I remember it's one of those dreams, you know, you wake up and you're like, you're just not sure how your day is going to go because it's like that powerful a dream. And I said to myself, I can either choose to interpret this as poor me, I don't have love in my life, and sadness and darkness and terrible things and whatever, or how lucky have I been to have love in my life? And I chose love, and that was an indication for me already to see how far I had come. So I was choosing light instead of dark, choosing light instead of dark, trying to choose love. And later that day, I went to a party, and in comes this man that I had seen before, and we had, you know, a conversation. I remember liking him, and he comes in, he sits down right beside me, and it's on. Like, the arms are going, and we're talking, and the flirting, and it proceeded into becoming a bit of a relationship. It was a bit of a courtship at distance, and it was going really lovely, and it was wonderful, and it was the beginning of something. And I really, really liked him. And then whether you believe in the universe giving you the things you need to learn, sometimes when you need to learn them or not, I ended up in a workshop thinking to myself, I don't need to be in this. Things are great. I've got this guy. Things are wonderful. And sure enough, he gave me everything I needed to learn in the same curve that this workshop was giving me. And what happened basically, and I see Winston standing there, but what happened was all of a sudden he said to me, Sasha, I don't want to date. And which came as a surprise. That's not where we were going. And I was in this workshop, and I had access to this amazing person, and we sat down and we went through it. And she said, okay, well, what are your options here? And I said, well, I can date him, I can sleep with him, I can be friends with him, or I can maybe be friends with him. He was asking for friends. And I was like, well, I want to date him, but he's taking that off the table. I can't do this because my heart lives in my vagina, so I'm gonna, you know, fall in love with him. You know, and friends is not really what I want, but that conversation was an aha for me, because I had never before stopped to say, what do I want? It had always been, what does he want? How do I get him to like me? Like all of that juvenile, unempowered, you know, smallness. And what it came to was I really wanted a long-term relationship. And even that, saying that out loud at the time, took courage, because it was having a sense of my own desire, knowing what I wanted, knowing what I thought. And then I think the most beautiful part of this whole thing for me was when I wrote him back, it wasn't blame, it wasn't, you know, antagonistic. It was a moment where I discovered what it means to be a queen, because I stepped into this most powerful place for myself where I was able to say to him, thank you. I appreciate what you're telling me. I appreciate that you want to do these things for yourself, and this is what I want for myself. And I'd never done that second part before. And I'd never also gone and told the other person, I hear you, and I love you for the way you are, but this is me loving me. And we're clearly not aligned. And what was so amazing about that was that we got closer out of that. So we didn't date, but that connection between us grew, and he stepped up, and he became a different kind of person. Our communication only got better. I became a different kind of person. And I'd like to believe that in stepping in, becoming a queen, I empowered him to become a king. And when I think about all these conversations that we're having around Me Too and what does it mean and not blaming, I think when one, and I'm trying this in all my relationships now, when one can step into knowing what is okay and not okay by us first, we have to know that, like really, and it's different for everybody. When we can own that for ourselves and love ourselves enough to claim that, then we have the power to say to others, I respect and admire what's okay and not okay by you, and that just elevates us together. So I really believe, first of all, it's empowering as crap, but I really believe that that's kind of where I want to keep going and where I hope we all go, which is accepting and knowing our true heart's desire, speaking up in the small times so that we can speak up when it's the big times, and hopefully allowing others to do the same. So with that, I thank you very much.
Thank you. Sasha Herman, everyone.
Located 1 block north of St. Paul's Hospital, Downtown Denture Center features complete and partial teeth restoration options. With 35 years experience, Anthony Chung offers mobile services and emergency repair consultation 24 hours a day. Downtown Denture Center, just off Nelson at 970 Burrard in the lobby of the Electra Building.
My name is Fender Benavides from Drive Motors in Quillam, serving the Filipino community for the past 4 years. Whether you're looking for a minivan, car, truck, SUV, or a crossover, guaranteed financing available. I am here to help. Salamat po.
Cowley and Company, car accident lawyers representing personal injury and disability victims in the Lower Mainland. A former chiropractor, Lee Cowley has more than 20 years experience as an attorney in BC. Locations include Abbotsford and Burnaby, with a head office in Surrey, on 104 Avenue at 138th Street.
Foodie World presents Philippine Street, featuring a large selection of Filipino foods. From imported non-perishable products to both packaged seafood and locally caught and very much alive. Foodie World is 75,000 square feet of worldly groceries situated in North Richmond.
All the stories that you're going to hear tonight are personal in nature, some of which can encroach on dark topics as addiction, abuse, self-harm, and you may get triggered by them. And if you do, there's a beautiful lounge to the back of XY that you can go down, chill out, get your composure, and when you're ready, you can come and join us. So I mentioned in the opening about standing up to bullying, standing up to people that don't want you to do something because either they're jealous of you or they're afraid of you. And the only way they can is to undermine, it's to circumvent you because they're afraid of you, and to circumvent you and to go and knock you down. And I grew up with that. Like, I grew up in a world where, well, to be blunt, it was racist, and I didn't have a support network. I was one of 4 Asian kids in the high school, and to constantly walk into a room and have people say, "What are you doing in here? You don't belong in here. What are you sitting in the front of the class for? Just go away. Just go hide. You don't deserve to be here." Growing up in that type of environment, it wears on you. But if you don't have any way of letting it out, you start believing that this is true. You start believing that this is how life is. And so it became that way. You grow up, you get used to it, you build up a thicker skin. But in the back of my mind, it never went away. And as I look back now on my glorious life and just see how twisted and demented I truly became, it took a lot of work to undo all that work. But by doing so, it took one moment in my life, and that secret day was May 3rd, 2013. It was a Friday where I looked at myself in the mirror after a serious bender and told myself, if I didn't change my way, I'll be dead within the next 5 years. Death is a massive motivator, as you can imagine, but it took a hell of a lot of courage for me to go up and make a phone call to someone that I hardly knew to hold me accountable. And I said, I need help, I need out, and I have no one to turn to. And he said, sure. And I to this day don't believe he said yes. But he did, and everything changed. So in that one moment, and I'm sure you've all felt this, in that one little moment where you sit there and you're like, I don't know, and you want to puke because you're so afraid of asking for that help. But for that heartbeat moment of courage, your whole life can change. And I invite my first speaker, Carol Metz-Murray, to speak about that.
Do you realize that you will be dead longer than you're alive? What will you do to have you feel the way you want to feel for the rest of your life? Winston and guests, feeling is one thing. Fear is another. And I, from the very get-go, lived in a state of fear and anxiety. I couldn't figure out why. What was that all about? But in that whole process of discovering and opening up fear and looking to find courage, over years I realized that that was what I had done my whole life, to figure out what it was that had caused all of this fear to grab hold of my heart and close it at a very early age. Now, the core of courage is vulnerability. And everybody works with vulnerability in different ways. Whether it's emotional, or whether it's going and doing something very adventurous, or whether it's letting life pass you by. When I was 5, I took my first big step of insane courage. I grew up on a farm, and part of being on the farm was helping. So my first step of insane courage was sitting underneath a 2,000-pound cow to milk her. That was more than scary, but I got through that. When I was 11, my parents entrusted me with the farm for a weekend, and I got to milk more than one cow, while they went off to a wedding. And such was my life. I was constantly then looking for adventures, and I couldn't figure out what was driving me. I've spent most of my life in leadership. And I spent part of my life up in the Yukon. And I took a leadership course. And the first requirement was that you didn't know how to canoe. Well, if you spend any time in the Yukon and you're going to be on the rivers in the Yukon, you need to know how to canoe. But I didn't. And I went and I spent 2 solid weeks on the river. And one of the things that we did in the course was we had to do white water. We had to go through the white water. Made it through without tipping the canoe. And yet, you know, there was something that was constantly driving me, is where is my joy? And what else do I need to do to be courageous? And life just kept on and on. And then I realized I had gone full circle to pull out for me the deep, deep part of why I had all of this fear and anxiety as a child into a young woman, into an adult, even as I raised my children.
Models are on display at Freeway Mazda. New Mazda sedans, crossovers, and SUVs surround the facility, and fully loaded versions occupy the floor of the showroom. At Freeway Mazda, 154th Street and 104 Avenue in Surrey. Located 1 block north of St. Paul's Hospital, Downtown Denture Center features complete and partial teeth restoration options. With 35 years experience, Anthony Chung offers mobile services and emergency repair consultation 24 hours a day. Downtown Denture Center, just off Nelson at 970 Burrard in the lobby of the Electra Building.
Cowley and Company, car accident lawyers representing personal injury and disability victims in the Lower Mainland. A former chiropractor, Lee Cowley has more than 20 years experience as an attorney in BC. Locations include Abbotsford and Burnaby, with a head office in Surrey, on 104 Avenue at 138th Street.
Foodie World presents Philippine Street, featuring a large selection of Filipino foods. From imported non-perishable products to both packaged seafood and locally caught and very much alive. Foodie World is 75,000 square feet of worldly groceries situated in North Richmond.
My name is Fender Benavides from Drive Motors in Quillam, serving the Filipino community for the past 4 years. Whether you're looking for a minivan, car, truck, SUV, or a crossover, guaranteed financing available. I am here to help. Salamat po.